Are you ready to experience the most haunted place in the world? Welcome to the scariest hostel on earth where death lurks around every corner and the spirits are restless. From blood-curdling screams to eerie whispers, you'll shiver at every sound. But it gets worse. Unexplained phenomena like flickering lights and moving objects will leave you questioning your sanity. And if you're a skeptic, you won't be after hearing the stories of past guests who have had terrifying encounters with the supernatural. What secrets does this hostel hold, and what horrors will you witness inside its walls? Find out in today's video. The caretaker of the hostel said that one night he heard someone screaming for help from one of the rooms. When he went to check on the source of the noise, he found nothing. He then turned off all of the lights and closed the door behind him and was about to make his way back down the hallway when he heard a scratching sound coming from within the room. It sounded like someone was trying to break down the door. Moments later, he heard footsteps coming toward him. He froze in fear as he listened to the footsteps getting closer and closer until they stopped right outside the room. Then everything went silent again. He slowly opened the door and found that the room was empty. There was no sign of forced entry and everything appeared to be normal. The caretaker was left shaken by the experience, and he couldn't help but wonder if there was something sinister lurking in the shadows of the hostel. After this incident, rumors began to spread among the other caretakers and staff members about the scratching sound. Some claimed that it was the sound of a desperate soul trying to escape the clutches of an evil entity that had taken up residence in the room. Others believed that it was simply the figment of an overactive imagination. However, no one could deny that the scratching sound had become a regular occurrence in the middle of the night. Guests would often wake up in their beds to the sound of nails on wood, followed by the distinct sound of footsteps pacing back and forth. Some even reported seeing the shadow of a man dragging himself along the floor. Despite the unsettling accounts, the room remained occupied by those who were either too afraid or too curious to leave. One particularly brave or foolish guest decided to spend the night in the cursed room. As darkness fell and the temperature dropped, the scratching began. The guest huddled in the corner, paralyzed with fear as the sound grew louder and more insistent. Then through the gloom, he saw a dark shape emerge from the closet. It seemed to be a man, or rather the specter of a man, dragging himself closer and closer. The ghost moaned pitifully, reaching out a hand as if pleading for help. The guest screamed and scrambled away, only to find that the room was empty once again. In the morning, of course, when the sun streamed in through the windows and chased away the darkness, the room looked normal and the ghost was nowhere to be seen. But the guest never forgot the terror of that night and vowed to never return to the cursed room again. From that day forward, the room became known as the ghost room, and anyone who dared to book it for the night was warned of the scratching and the ghost that lurked within. Yet somehow the room always seemed to be in demand, and new guests kept arriving, eager to test their courage against the supernatural. With each passing year, the scratching grew louder and more frequent, and the ghost seemed to become more bold in its nightly appearances. It wasn't long before the walls of the hostel bore witness to another terrifying encounter. A young woman had booked the ghost room for the night. She was a writer who specialized in ghost stories, and she was hoping to get some inspiration for her next project. As soon as she stepped into the room, she could feel a cold presence watching her. She tried to shake off the feeling and get to work, but it was impossible. Every time she sat down to write, she would hear the scratching sound again. This time, though, it seemed to be coming from inside the closet. Curiosity got the better of her, and she slowly opened the door. Inside was a full-length mirror. As she stared into its depths, she saw a dark figure standing behind her. It was the same man from the previous story. He was tall and thin with long, greasy hair and a tattered shirt. His eyes were wide and vacant, staring directly at her with an expression of sheer terror. Startled, she stumbled backward and knocked over a nearby table. The ghost screamed and vanished. Shaken but not deterred, she continued to investigate the room. She found a diary hidden under the floorboards, and when she opened it, she discovered a series of chilling entries detailing the life and death of the man in the mirror. According to the diary, his name was Thomas, and he had been staying in the same room many years ago when he was brutally murdered by a jealous lover. Since then, his spirit had been trapped in the room, unable to move on to the afterlife. Armed with this knowledge, the writer felt a sense of sympathy for Thomas, and she vowed to help him find peace. She spent the rest of the night reading ghost stories and singing songs from his era, hoping to comfort his restless soul. When the sun came up, the scratching sound had stopped, and the ghost was nowhere to be seen. The writer left the room feeling drained, but satisfied that she had done something good. To this day, no one knows whether Thomas has truly moved on, or if he is still haunting the hostel, waiting for someone to help him find peace. As the years passed, the hostel became known as a hotspot for paranormal activity, and ghost hunters from around the world flocked to the city, hoping to catch a glimpse of one of the many spirits that were said to reside there. One group of paranormal investigators set up camp in the ghost room and waited patiently for something to happen. Sure enough, as the clock struck midnight, the scratching began. But this time it was accompanied by a low, guttural voice that seemed to be coming from the closet. The ghost hunters turned their equipment toward the closet and listened intently. "Let me out," the voice whispered. "Please let me out." Their hearts pounding in their chests, the investigators slowly opened the closet door and stepped inside. What they found was a small, dusty box hidden behind some old clothes. When they opened it, they discovered a collection of human bones. Could these remains be the key to solving the mystery of the ghost room? The investigators carefully examined the bones and found that they were indeed human. They contacted the local authorities, and a full-scale investigation was launched. It uncovered a dark secret from the hostel's past. Many years ago, a guest had gone missing after booking a stay in the very same room. The police had searched the building thoroughly, but had come up empty-handed. Now, with the discovery of the bones, it was clear that foul play was involved. And the staff and guests alike were horrified to learn that a murder had taken place within their midst. With the help of a psychic medium, the ghost hunters were able to communicate with the spirit of the missing person. Through their conversations, they learned that the man had been killed by one of the hostel employees, who had then disposed of his body in the closet. But why would someone want to kill an innocent guest? As they delved deeper into the case, they discovered that the employee was actually the owner of the hostel, and he had killed the guest because he had found out that he was planning to write a story about the seedy underbelly of the city. The owner was a ruthless businessman who would stop at nothing to protect his empire, and he had silenced the guest to prevent him from exposing his illegal activities. Armed with this knowledge, the ghost hunters confronted the owner and demanded answers. At first, he tried to deny everything, but when faced with overwhelming evidence, he broke down and confessed to the crime. He led the investigators to a secret passageway that he had used to smuggle the body out of the hostel and dispose of it. With the help of the police, the remains were recovered and the missing person was finally able to be laid to rest. The owner of the hostel was arrested and charged with murder, and justice was finally able to be served. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a comment below to share your thoughts.